wanna take advice from fools. I'll just figure everything is cool until I hear it from you.
I'm Joe Duffy, CEO of OffshoreInsiders.com. The 2011-2012 NFL season has two very major changes and new factors for all sharp players, all world champion sports handicappers to very much take into consideration. And that will start with the NFL preseason. Number one, the blatantly obvious, and that is the NFL lockout. How is it going to affect teams? How should it affect your handicapping? A lot of new intangibles and factors, key metrics to consider. Number two, something that's going to sneak under the radar of a lot of square players, but certainly not under the radar of the sharps, and that is there are fewer and fewer big-time offshore sports books that are taking bets from the United States. Well, first of all, NFL preseason from day one going to be greatly affected by the lockout positively. Remember, our golden rule of handicapping, possibly at the top of the list, we have a few golden rules of handicapping, but very well at the top of that list is the odds makers and the square player despise uncertainty. Meanwhile, the sharp player loves uncertainty. Whatever is bad for the odds maker is good for the sharp player and the professional gambler. That is always going to be the case, and it always has been the case. And that's where we're going to exploit it. All the same factors that have applied in preseason before are certainly going to apply in the 2011 NFL preseason, but it's going to be on steroids. There's going to be so many more opportunities. The preseason primer, which this year will actually post at scoresoddspicks.com/news, or we'll link it directly from offshoreinsiders.com, is going to be the most valuable primer yet. There are going to be clear-cut cases where probably, and we say probably, but we're going to know definitively by game time, but probably more established teams like the Green Bay Packers, New Orleans Saints, New England Patriots, they might be more inclined to be more vanilla during the preseason, not play their star established veteran players, while teams like Seattle, Minnesota, various teams in transition, any team with a new coach, any team with a bunch of new players, they will most likely play their starters and key players even longer than they would have in previous preseasons, and will very likely play more regular season type schemes, less vanilla schemes than you're usually going to see in the preseason. Now, we say probably because we are going to be searching the news and notes on a game-by-game basis. You know we love Google News. You know we love the ESPN Insider, as well as a lot of the other great football sites and sports sites, Sportsline, etc., etc. There's always great information out there for the gamblers, but it takes a lot of hard work to find it. And this year, more than ever, starting in the NFL preseason, there are going to be big differences in motivation, big differences in how vanilla and how creative schemes are going to be. And that's where the hard work is going to pay off now more than ever. Another factor that's going to be the case both in the preseason and certainly continue well into the NFL regular season, we tell you one of the bigger mistakes the square player makes, and the odds maker has to adjust. Square players are going to outsmart themselves. They're going to see a team in week one of the preseason, week one of the NFL regular season, and they're going to overreact. There are going to be some teams, more than usual, very likely more than usual after 2, even 3 weeks in the NFL, are going to look a lot better than most people expected, and there are going to be teams that look a lot worse. As is almost always the case, these teams will return to their means. There's going to be serious adjustment. You know that term we like to use, consistently inconsistent. Sharp players know how to exploit those teams that are consistently inconsistent or predictably unpredictable. We kind of use them interchangeably. Again, 2011, 2012, going to be bigger than ever for that. Most importantly, the factors are going to change on a week-by-week basis. I guess I'm going to jump back to the preseason again, but you may have a case. We'll take the Cincinnati Bengals, for example. Perhaps in week one, their top priority is going to be breaking in these new players, new schemes, guys they expect to be starters. They play well in week one and things go great in practice. Week two, it might be just the opposite. They might, can be concerned more about going with vanilla schemes, not showing as much for the regular season to, on film for people that are going to be scouting them for the regular season, etc. And vice versa. There may be one team that comes out extremely vanilla in week one and then really wants to get players involved in week two. Also, keep in mind, there are a lot of free agents out there. There's going to be a lot of roster moves. I'd be shocked if in the 2011 NFL preseason there's not more week-to-week roster moves than any other preseason before. Again, that creates great opportunity for the sharp player. Now, we also spoke about another major change. This one's going to sneak under the radar. More and more offshore sports books are no longer taking action from United States players. I've been in this business, as most of you know, since the 1980s when I was on the Scorephone's JD of the ACC. I was known as the biggest downside for the offshore sports books when everybody thought it was safe and 100% legal, and all the whales, all the high rollers were either betting in Vegas or offshore. The bad news is it meant no real sharp moves were sneaking under the radar anymore. If there was sharp information, it was going to be reflected in the lines. But I do know for a fact, I'm not going to get more specific, but there are a lot of high rollers, a lot of big-time whales out there who for the last 15, 20 years, 10 years, they've been betting with offshore sports books. They're now going to diversify. They're going to be betting a lot more through the quote-unquote corner bookie, who's going to have some pretty high limits. And to the sharp player, that means there's going to be a lot of sharp moves that will not be reflected in the line, sneaking under the radar, creating another great opportunity. Beat the screen. Now, conversely, there might not be as many bad moves where you're able to middle it, but then again, there are going to be some situations where there are people out there who love to chase steam, and they think they're chasing the hot steam. They're going to falsely do it. So again, another reason why there's going to be such a gap between the square player and the sharp player this year. There will be more false line moves this year than ever before, and there will be fewer wise guy steam moves than ever before. Again, the square player is going to subsidize the sharp player more than ever before. And another one, and probably the theme of our next video, but it also means week-to-week adjustments by the handicapper, bigger than ever. Look, there's no question it's important to check those preseason publications, do your research in the preseason, but I'm going to tell you something. It's going to become outdated in the NFL, not so much college, but in the NFL, it's going to become outdated this year more than ever. Then again, to a certain extent, it will in college because of what we said about the false line moves and the sharp line moves. But week-to-week research is going to be more valuable than ever before. And I don't like to say it because it's going to come out wrong, but frankly, the preseason research is going to be less effective than it has in years past. So again, 2011, 2012, a lot of opportunities out there for the sharp player, but you got to roll with the changes. Remember, the best picks, just like every other year, will be at offshoreinsiders.com, www.offshoreinsiders.com. Best of all, this year, we've added Bill Tanner. Bill Tanner, those of you remember him, also going back to the Scorephones, he's the only handicapper in the world ranked in the top 15 in every single sport, college and pro. Counted separately, he's ranked in the top 15 out of 620 sports services monitored by the Master Lock Line, going back to the Super Lock Line, going back to the Lock Line on the Scorephone days. Ranked number in the top 15 in the NFL, college football, college basketball, NBA, and baseball. We're working on something else. We're pretty sure we're going to have another major edition before football starts. Remember, this is, I believe, Matt Rivers' third year with us. Master Lock Line, of course, my picks at God's Tips are the anchor of offshoreinsiders.com. Stevie Vincent, a whole lot more. It's all at www.offshoreinsiders.com. And don't forget, scoresoddspicks.com/news. Free picks, free preseason primer. If you bet on your own, you absolutely positively are going to want to check out the preseason primer notes. Free, no subscription needed. You don't even have to give us email address or anything, all at scoresoddspicks.com/news. Or if it's easy to remember, just go to offshoreinsiders.com.